I am going to try to make Arnie Texas chili recipe. And when I was there learning about Texas chili, they did put beans in it. And if you'll remember, or if you watch, I think most of you do, The Big Bang Theory, where Priya makes Texas chili and it has beans in it, and Sheldon goes off on one of his tangents about chili doesn't have beans in it. I'm actually going to address that in another video, because there's a difference between Mexican chili and Tex-Mex chili, and there's even other kinds of chili in other parts of North America. So all of these different things are what Arnie basically talks about in his different videos. So today I'm making the Tex-Mex chili, which will have beans in it, even though the recipe that he's making, he doesn't put beans in it himself, but he does say in the recipe, he doesn't in the video, but he does say in the recipe, which I printed out, that you can put beans in it. And as I recall that as being the only way I'd ever done it there or seen it done there, that's what I'm going to do. So I'd already cooked some pinto beans, and you've already seen how that was done. And this time, since I had so many things to do, I actually did cook them in the slow cooker for the day, and I'll add them later. The first thing that we have to do is cook the meat. I've got a much smaller amount of ingredients. I'm not making a 4-pound chili. I think he made about 2 kilos of chili in this huge pot. I think it's even bigger than my big pot. And I'm not making that much. So I'm going to be adapting it a bit in terms of how much of each thing I'm going to use. And the first thing that he recommended doing is cooking the meat at a quite a high temperature. So I'm going to put the burner on the highest. It's my induction oven, so my induction cooker, I mean. So we'll see, because he said make it as high as possible. And I do have an electric burner, so if it doesn't work as well this time on my induction hob, which doesn't get hot enough for corn tortillas, which I'm still working on, then next time I'll do it on that single burner that I have. But for now, it is getting hot because we can hear the sizzling. Not meant to cook the meat. This is meant to get a good hard browning going on, and it's supposed to stick to the bottom of the pot. It's supposed to make a bit of brown on the bottom of the pan, which you'll see when you watch the video. I can't show it. He actually did get his camera all steamy showing the bottom of the pan, but I can't do that. So that's another good reason for me to include the link in my description box, is because you'll then be able to see exactly what's doing. So I'm going to get this meat well browned, and then I'll be able to show you how that happens. I was surprised that he cooks this for several hours, because I had never cooked it for so long, but I am going to cook it his way. So this will be obviously quite broken up, but at the end of the day, by dinner time, by tea time, I think by tea time, yeah, we should have a good bowl of chilli. So, until next time. Now, the meat is done the way he said that it should be done. So, I can put the meat in the little pot that I'm using, and then I'll show you why he wanted it done in a regular pot. There's a method to it for him. The bottom of the pot should have this on it. That was the goal, and that is then to add some flavour to the chilli. So now I'm going to add some water to that while the pot is still hot. You can hear it simmering. And then take a spatula and scrape the bottom of the pot. And of course, it's going to be a little bit more work for me because I'm not a big strong man like he is. I'm not as strong as I used to be. So, but it is working quite well. I think the reason I don't remember chilli taking 4 hours to cook was because the beans were cooked before, which is what I've done. I don't know. Now, granted, it has been decades. It was, I'm 66 now, so we're talking about more than 40 years ago. It's been a long time, so I might not remember the exact amount of time that it took. Now, change pots and put all of that meat. There was quite a bit of meat. So, see if you can see that. I don't know if you can see that from that distance, but there was quite a bit that has come off of that pot. And now I have nothing stuck to the bottom of the pot. He called it sounded like he was saying fond. And of course the auto subtitles just spell what it thinks it heard. So you can't really go by that. But never mind. So I'm going to take this pot off to the side where it can cool enough for me to wash it. And then I'll go to the next step. Now the next step that he said to do is ground beef, okay, onions, garlic cloves, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to turn this down. And I'm going to add onions, garlic, and tomatoes. It will have tomatoes in it because it's not Mexican chili, it's Texas chili. So I'm going to chop those things up and then come back. Now, I'm going to put in, I didn't chop my garlic, I like chunks. So, in go chunks of garlic. chopped white onions, and it actually is, as he says, better to get big sweet white onions if you can find them. And then just cut up some tomatoes and put those in. I'm only going to use a couple of small ones because I just don't like that many tomatoes. In the chili. They're more of a salsa thing. And he's got some salsa recipes that are going to be fun to make. The difficulty I'm having is fresh habanero peppers. So I'm working on getting those. I found a UK website which sell them, but I'm having difficulty getting someone who wants to deliver them. Just because the lift is out and they have to climb 2 flights of stairs with an envelope of 3 peppers. Okay. Anyway, so I've put those in, get those stirred in. I've watched the video this morning again, but I invariably find, because I'm copying out the recipe, I invariably find when I finish cooking it and I watch the video again that I've done something in the wrong order, but nonetheless it ends up tasting the same. So after I've added those in, then he calls for 4 tablespoons of chili powder, but I'm not making a huge chili, so I'm just going to put in, I'm going to start with a teaspoon of chili powder, and I've got hot chili pepper powder, and I can always taste it and see if I need to add something, but I'll put that in. And then he said smoked paprika and some kind of spices that I don't have, that he gets from a place called Pitmaster. But I do have Mexican oregano, so I'm going to use that. And cumin. Where did I put the cumin? I got out coriander, but I don't remember now I'm actually using that. And that's because he didn't. Okay, so just set that aside. But I am going to get cumin. Where did I put my cumin? There it is. Get my chair up there. And let's just put a bit of cumin in. Leave it open for a few minutes so that the steam dries out. Otherwise, that's what hardens the spices in your little jars, is if you let steam in them and then you close the lid and just put them back. That gets everything all gooped up and hardened, so they need to be aired out if they've been put over the pot. Okay, then what was next? Chili powder, smoked paprika. Where did I put my smoked paprika? There, of course. because I grew up with all sorts of ethnic foods, hot smoked paprika. Give it a bit of that. Leave it out in case it isn't enough. And the tomatoes. Then beef broth in place of water if desired. So what I'm going to do is just stir this in. My beef was Angus steak mince and extraordinarily lean, so I didn't need to do any of the things he has to do. No, he had to do no fat, no water out of the meat, none of that. It's already smelling wonderful. And now he's calling for a 1/4 cup of tomato paste. I happen to have tomato paste, but I'm not going to use the 1/4 cup. I will go ahead and use the entire little pot simply because, well, I guess that would be a 1/4 cup, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because I know I'm not going to be using it very soon, so rather than having it thrown out and wasted, I'll just use it. And then water. So what I'm going to do is I've got salt-free Norse beef bouillon, stock cubes. So I'm going to put some of that in some hot water from the kettle, and I'll just pause this and be right back. Okay, I've got the stock in boiling water. He used 3 different kinds of chili powder that I don't have access to. And so he'll explain to you all the differences between them. I'm sure the flavours are amazing, but he also used a couple of pitmaster things. The pitmaster things were, he called it OG, which is supposedly salt, garlic and something else. And then a pitmaster stock. But what I have is salt-free beef stock. Pour that in the pot, and it was just enough to cover the meat, which is what he says to do. And now I am going to do the last step, which he didn't do. Instead of adding, he adds mirepoix, which is chopped carrots, chopped celery and chopped onion. I'm not going to use that. Personally, I think that would just be adding carrots for myself, and I'm not bothered. So I won't put that in. And he says add flour to thicken or macerina. And I do have the Mexican flour that I use for the corn tortillas. But I'll wait and see if I think that's necessary, because he does say if needed. What I'm going to get now are the beans, because I want them, they're not in the, this is a silly girl, I want them to be cooking in the pot with the meat. many of these are needed for this little pot. Let's just thread them up. That's all right then. Stir that in. Now I'll bring it to a boil, and then he said that it needs to simmer for several hours. So the process that I'll be doing for the next few hours is just that, just simmering it, keeping an eye on it, seeing if it needs thickening with the masrina, that sort of thing. And when it's all done, then I'll taste it. If it needs anything else, I'll add it. But it smells like it's going to be fine. So I'll be coming back when it's done, because that's all that's left, is to just cook it. So I'll come back when it's done cooking, and then we'll take it from there. I've got my own things to add to it, because I don't have habanero peppers at the moment. I do have habanero sauce, I have Cholula sauce, and I have jalapenos. And I know I've heard people over the years in Brighton, when there used to be a Mexican restaurant there that was trying to get started, and they would say jalapenos, but it's actually jalapenos. There's that little mark over the end. So that's why I say jalapenos. I learned about jalapenos and learned how to say them at the same time, so I've said it that way ever since. I had such a difficult time spelling it. I could never remember how to spell jalapenos, but that's how they're said. That's how it's said. So we'll be back, and then we'll see how that all looks. Okay, it is tea time. The chili has been cooking, simmering nicely all this time. I personally have decided that I'm not going to add any thickening stuff, which is what that thickener that he made was for. And he did say that it just depends on how you feel about it. I just feel that it's quite nice the way it is. It's rather steamy, but I think I will try showing you the pot. So let's get it over here and see if I can get, I'm trying to watch where it's going. So yeah, that's a rather nice pot of chili, and it does look quite nice. So I've got my little bowl, and I haven't tasted it yet to see if I got the spices right. I just now realised that. So let's see if I got the spices right. It smells like I did. I did. Yeah, that's good. So then I'm going to put some freshly grated cheddar cheese in it. And Cholula. cheese and add a little bit more of a kick, and then there's the bowl of chilli. Stir in all that cheese and hot sauce and get it melted in there. I might actually change my mind and add some jalapenos later, but I think I've got the seasoning right, so we'll see. But anyway, that's a nice hot chili for chilly winter days. So I hope that you try it and that you'll enjoy it. And I'll watch it again and try to list the measurements that I used for the spices and things in the description box, the way he does, because I changed everything for the size. And I'm surprised that I guessed the measurements for the spices so well. It actually is well balanced, so good. Yummy. Yeah, I hope that you enjoy it. See you later.